Assalamu alaikum and good evening, everyone. Always a pleasure to be live on Let's Talk for a new session. We'll wait for the audience to join before we welcome our guest for tonight and start the session. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmah. Hello, thank you for joining. Nice to see familiar names. Good evening. Ahlan wa sahlan, thank you for joining. Okay, so we'll give it a start for tonight. Always a pleasure to be live again on Let's Talk to share and celebrate our valued alumni achievements. Today's session is very special with a media guest and a ZU alumni of 2009, a graduate now from 11 years. We'll be taking you on a mission of her career excellence, sharing her story in the media sector, and highlighting her communication and pass on and incorporation at the Hope Probe, or the Mission to Mars, Arabs and Mars, as it's the biggest and the latest and the hottest topic of the year, where the entire region is busy with COVID-19 virus and the effect of COVID-19 that may last for a number of months or time. The UAE has been very busy to achieve something very special in the Arab history and as a historical record, which our valued alumni had incredible and significant impact on. I'm very pleased and excited to welcome my guest for tonight, Atheer Bin Shaker, ZU Alumni of 2019 from the College of Media Sciences and Creativity. And today she is a part of Dubai Media Incorporated as a bulletin editor and a TV presenter. Assalamu alaikum, Atheer. Welcome on.
Thank you for this awesome introduction. Thank you, really. I'm so honored to be with you guys today.
Thank you so much. You know how busy your schedule is?
No, believe me, I think it's calmed down a little bit after last week, at the beginning of this week with the whole probe. So it's a bit quiet now.
Alhamdulillah. Before we start and we jump in your, mashallah, rich career excellence, let's would you introduce us to yourself and tell us more about Atheer?
First of all, I'm really honored to be with you guys today. 11 years ago, or even since 2005, I wouldn't have imagined that we would first be doing a virtual meeting or a virtual discussion. It would be out of this world, but at the same time, to be honored to have what you guys think and see as a career in excellence, especially in media. My name is Atheer Bin Shaker. I am a Zayed University Dubai campus alumni. Right now I work as a senior bulletin editor and a TV presenter in Dubai Media Incorporated. And I'm a mother. I have a little girl. Her name is Maya, who is behaving herself right now and staying away. She knows Mama is busy with the discussion. And well, basically, I think our work speaks for us instead of us trying to speak more about ourselves. But I would say that, alhamdulillah, I'm blessed to have a career with something that, or through something that I'm very passionate about, which is communication, and not media necessarily, but communication. So I think this is what I can say right now.
Wonderful. I think we'll talk about your timeline in Zaid University as a student. How did you choose your major? What was the reason behind choosing your major?
I joined ZU by coincidence. I was actually accepted in AUS, but and Zaid University. However, there was this one orientation day. It was a very fateful day that my two best friends, who I'm gonna mention later, of course, they told me to join them. It's just one day, an orientation, and the day I went in there was khalas, I just stayed. I didn't go to AUS. So that orientation, I was just a visitor with my friends, and I ended up being actually a student. How did I choose media? At the time that we were in Zayed University, or we joined in 2005, of course we had, I forgot what was the first year called. It wasn't orientation. أنا مسمى أول سنة.
The university college year?
No, yeah, the first year that we actually joined. So it's
General.
basically, yes, general. So we basically just took everything. And in the second semester, we got to choose two majors. I chose art history and communications. And it was actually three professors that just made it very clear for me that this is the path that I want to be in. Susan Swan, James Pikeway, who is still there. Dr. James is still there. And Dr. Brad, he actually taught us graphic design, which I was very bad at. But it was just the passion that they had is what just inclined me more to be in communications. However, I was more into event planning and tourism, but I didn't, even though I graduated in integral communication, event planning and tourism, I worked for no, not even, yani it was less than 1 year in event planning, and I'm like, no, this is not for me. On to the next, which was just public communication in general. Oh, and I have to mention as well, Dr. Adil Al-Jandli, he was also one of the professors that have had a very big impact on my career. And Dr. Bedran. I hope I'm not forgetting anyone. I really hope so.
Um, what made you understand that this is the right choice?
Um, I guess there was not a time where there was like a fine line or a determining moment that I knew that this was for me, but there was something that just kept me going. Whether it was with the studies, although there were a lot of challenges. However, we just kept going. There was just like, it was like a steam engine. I don't know. I'm not so sure where the fuel was coming from. Maybe it was my passion. But I just kept going. I just kept going, and I didn't get tired. And alhamdulillah, until this day, I'm not tired. Inshallah, I will never be, because it's love and passion for what I'm doing.
When you do it with passion, it's always fun.
Yes,
Never
it
with
is.
force.
It's not always fun, but you know, when there's something that you unconditionally love, it's just gonna stick with it.
Yes.
So yeah, basically.
Atheer, as a student at Zayed University back in 2005 to 2009, um, what the different curriculum activities were you part of that shaped your character, the character that we all know as an Atheer today?
Um, well, I would say what shaped my character is two main factors. Number one, my friends, my sisters now. I met most of them at university, and they're my sisters now. So we would always do things together as media students. To be honest, extracurricular activities to the students out there are super important. During our time in ZU, media was more doing than studying. So that felt like extracurricular activities by itself. It was, I don't know how the curriculum is now, but we never stayed for an entire week in uni without not doing something, whether it's going to other Emirates or just going out there and doing something. My friends, my sisters, ريسة الزرعوني, مريم فلاسي, سارة أحراري, خلود العطيات, عليا لوتا, عليا الشامسي. I hope not forgetting anyone. Maryam and Raisa I know now for about 30 years now, around 30 years, alhamdulillah. Sarah, Khaloud, Alia, and Alia were some of the people that really helped me as well with Raisa and Maryam to shape my entire experience in university, and just being really, really creative, because each and every single one of us, even though Maryam was an art student, each and every single one of us, we were part of a puzzle. So when we would do a project, Raisa would be the creative mind, for example, behind the imaging and the graphic design. Sarah would be with the budgeting and the finance, and as well as creative ideas. Everyone gave something. So it was like an entire community within a community. So I would say this is what shaped how I work today. Yani how I work after, yani since 2005 until today, we're talking 15 years. So each and every single one of them had a very, very big impact on how I am today, especially that we were in the same batch. Of course, I have a lot of more friends, alhamdulillah, from uni.
Alhamdulillah. Atheer, so the different experiences or the different backgrounds of your friends had a lot of impact. How
Yeah.
about the career path that you imagined or wished for yourself and probably worked towards?
I'd be lying if I said that there was a specific career path, to be honest. Uh, as I said, I graduated in integral communication. It's what the major was called back then, and it would be basically focusing on every aspect of media: written, visual, public speaking, and event planning, tourism, all of the above. All of the above. However, when I graduated and I interned actually at ZU, it was a beautiful time. I went into the events department. After my internship, I got a job at ZU as an events planner at that time. But see, event management is very hard, and it needs specific type of personality to do it, and I applaud them. I commend them for that. And less than a year later, I found myself in Dubai TV. I actually stormed into the manager's office. I didn't storm. I knocked the door very politely without any appointment, and I was like, "Please, give me a job, even if I don't get paid. I think this is what I want to do. It's just to be a vessel of communication to others." And until this day, I honestly don't know what my career path is going to be. However, I do know that through what I'm going to do, the one thing that I aim to do, if you tell me what's my plan in 5 or 10 years, it's to positively influence people with doing work that would make them smile or think about something or reflect upon themselves, whatever it may be. So career path, I honestly don't know. But the engine is still running, as I told you. The passion is still there, and as long as we're doing something that lifts people's spirits up, I think I'm just going to go through that path.
Beautiful mission, Atheer. Since you studied the different parts of media, bits and pieces, and the major was very technical, moving from one emirate to emirate with different projects, did that help you to play the current role in Dubai Media Incorporated, which is the bulletin editor beside being a TV presenter?
Yes. 100%. You know, now that you say this, I'm actually realizing it because it wasn't a specific thing. Like, for example, I didn't study, for example, media, broadcast and filming, or media, graphics and advertisement. It was everything. So there was a lot of multitasking, and this is what my job requires today. This is what my job required since I started working, but especially now as a senior bulletin editor. Um, you just have to wear different hats, and you have to work with a lot of different personalities, a lot of different aspects, because what we do is a production of basically everything. So what I do now, I think I came full circle because we do the photography, we do the presenting, we do the writing, we do the animation, we do everything. Yes, I work with a whole team, but yeah, now that you're saying it, I'm realizing it. I've come full circle, which is amazing.
I'll come back to this full circle with a surprising question. But before that, I'll take on your first job, Indo. Working in the private sector, did it help you to be Atheer today? Did it help in shaping? We know that the private sector teaches way more and demands way more than the government sector or the public sector. So, how did you see that?
Yes, at the time when I started working, it was I started February 2010. Um, I was in a private sector and then moved to a government sector, and yes, I saw a very, very big difference. Um, of course, people would talk about vacations, working hours, all of that. It was very different, but what was beautiful at that time, working in working in the private sector, is the multinationalities that I worked with. It was just beautiful. I loved that so much. At that time, the government sector had mostly locals. They were a bigger percentage, but then again, this is from what I saw. This is from what I read as well, which is also beautiful. But to me, I feel like I belong more in a multinational. Everyone is with everyone because this is how we grew up. This is Dubai. This is the UAE. However, it also has a very grueling schedule. I'm not gonna say we would work until 8 p.m., 9 p.m. One time we actually worked until 3 a.m. But then again, this is not relevant today because right now the youth, especially in the government sector, are working these long hours and are working with all the multinationalities that we see, which is beautiful. And because this is what the UAE is about. It's a melting pot, right? So no need to, for example, just go like, oh, I want to be with the locals or I want to be with a multinational team. The private sector and the government sector are kind of becoming alike now. So they are completing one another. And it's important for UAE and people from the Gulf in general to be in the private sectors to create a balance, I guess. So yeah, it was very different 10 years ago. Now, even the days off are almost the same between government and private, working hours, everything else. They're kind of becoming, not merging, but they're kind of becoming alike, I would say.
Talking about the two different sectors and the Emirati youth part of it. Um, Years ago, the stereotype of Emiratis leaning into more the government sector or the public sector and their lifestyle, their demands, um, were the discussion of the market, of the job market,
Yeah.
were the hot topic that everyone would question and reason.
Mhm.
How do you see it today since you're now a senior employee and at many times have a say in hiring and newbies entering the incorporation?
Um, can you paraphrase the question, Hind? I didn't quite get it.
Yeah, so years ago, the stereotyping of Emiratis and they're leaning towards being hired in the public sector. The reasoning behind it, the lifestyle that was the topic that everyone used to discuss when it comes to
True.
hiring.
Yeah.
Now, how do you see it with the newbies joining?
First of all, I don't I have a say in hiring in this new position. It was very different in my older position. However, we have to understand one thing, that usually if the youth, if the students would go up and try to read a little bit more about the private and government sector, think about it as the private sector is a ladder. You know exactly what your career path is going to be. For example, you start as in my days, it was a graduate trainee, and then they would be something else, and then they would be a manager, and then they would be, so you know exactly where you're going. In the government sector, usually it's more of like a tree, and these are two ways, by the way, to move up in your career. It's either a tree or a ladder. It's one of those two. So one day in government, you are, for example, I would give you myself as an example. I was كنت مراسل محرر. I was an editor, and how did I forget this word? A reporter. And then I went from an editor to reporter to another job because there was a gap. I was in DMI, I went to another government sector, and then came back to DMI. When I went there, I was a producer and a radio presenter. See, it's different. It's not like a ladder. And then I came back to DMI with something totally different. A senior bulletin editor, which in Arabic it's رئيس تحرير أول, and a TV presenter. So it's like a branch of a tree, you know? So these are two main different aspects. But this also plays a role in the pay. Students should understand this. Correct. When we go to the government, usually, I don't know what's going to happen now with Corona, we can never tell, or after COVID-19, the salary is usually higher than the private sector. However, with the private sector and the clear career path, you know, kind of, how much you're going to be making within X amount of years, or not necessarily the years, but for example, if you go from this grade to the next grade, you know what kind of raise you're going to get. In the government sector,
kind of rapid or high.
well, yeah, kind of, and not necessarily, but I mean, you know that when I reach the next step, my salary will be this amount. However, in government, because you don't know where you're going to be next, if they give you a raise or give you a higher grade, you're not so sure as to what the salary is going to be. So these are two different things. I actually learned this during my days when I was a radio producer and TV presenter, and we had a show that in its last 2 years focused on work and the government and private sector. So we had a lot of professionals come and explain these things to us. يعني when the youth will come and say, oh, you know, I'll just go to the government sector, they pay more, I work less hours, I don't want this and I don't want that, and no. This doesn't apply anymore. It's non-existent. This was 15 or 10 years ago. So they need to keep up the pace with these kinds of things with the job market.
Wonderful. So we saw Atheer as a student with the different different extracurriculum activities you have done, and the first job, and now we see Atheer and Dubai Media Incorporated, or DMI. With the number of years working in DMI, I'll jump into the hottest topic, which is Hopoprop. How do you see? How did you get the trust of being chosen between all of those talents, mashallah, and DMI, to be given this golden opportunity?
Well, based on my work, I'm a senior bulletin editor in what we call specials, التغطيات الخاصة. For example, the broadcast that would have been Zayed's ambition, طموح Zayed, when we had our first Emirati, an Arabic astronaut to be flown out to the International Space Station, or would have been the let's say National Day, Dubai World Cup, which was unfortunately cancelled due to COVID, and now Misbar al-Amal, or the Hope Probe. Because I am a senior bulletin editor in specials, I'm lucky enough to get to be working on these specific special broadcasts. It's an honor because everything is historical that we're working on. Alhamdulillah. So I was lucky enough to be in a team led by amazing managers, to be honest, because they're all passionate in what they do. So that's how I got my chance. بحكم شغلي هناك، بحكم عملي. So because I am a senior bulletin editor in specials. As a presenter, how did I get that opportunity? I worked hard, and I work hard to prove myself. Everyone is as hardworking. I'm talking about all my colleagues, and we all have the passion. But alhamdulillah, I was lucky enough to be chosen, especially because of my passion about space. Space is my second passion, by the way. And I just love it. Yeah, I can just talk for hours about space and the discoveries and the sciences of it. So I think I was able to translate that passion into my work, and working on such projects is such an honor alongside my colleagues, whether they were in front of the camera or backstage. Everyone was working as hard, and the support that we got from the people that were not directly in that project was as beautiful, honestly. So it's historic, yani. I'm so happy that inshallah one day my daughter is going to look back to these broadcasts and say, Mama was there and Mama spoke about this. So she's the most important person to me, that she's going to see that Mama was part of something, communicating something so historic for the Arab world and not just the UAE.
Indeed, she will. I'm very sure. And
Inshallah.
not the only one that's proud of you. We're honestly very proud of you. You're putting
Thank you.
historical impression on giving a hope to the youth, specifically the Arab youth, and aiming them for a brighter future, raising the bar. So this is really something we look for. And
Thank you.
again, UAE always aims for the position number one. So we're reaching there gradually.
You
Or
know,
we are.
Hind, yeah, especially during these times. I mean, the world just stood still with COVID-19, and they cannot be blamed by standing still because it's a very scary pandemic. It's the reason why you and I are not sitting face to face today. And it's the reason why being able to broadcast the Hope Probe or Misbar al-Amal was a very magical moment for everyone, because COVID-19 and everything that happened made us forget so many things. And as we're getting slowly back to our normal or the new normal lives, I think we just needed this breath of fresh air to be focusing on something different. So, and having the UAE represent the Arab world in this beautiful way, I think all of us needed it, and we need to know how important this mission is. It's not just because, oh, we're one of the 9 countries that are gonna be feeding humanity very important things and studies about Mars. This mission is gonna change your life, Hind, and my life, and the people right now who are watching us. They just need to understand and grasp this. It is going to change our living conditions. It's going to change the living conditions of the climate for our children and our grandchildren. How it's of all the hard work that's being put to it, and the aspirations, as you said, Hind, and the ambition that the UAE has.
Looking forward for those beautiful days, very promising. Um, Atir, talk to us about the preparations for the Hubble probe pass on or coverage.
Well, the preparations were very different this time because since last year, we kind of had a plan of how we're going to be preparing for the broadcast of the Hope Probe. We are the eyes and ears of the people, so we have to do them justice. And then Corona happened, and then everything changed for us, and as well, and more importantly, the team, the UAE Space Agency and Mohammed bin Rashid Center, Space Center. Things changed drastically, so we just had to juggle so many things. People were stuck back in their countries, not being able to come back to the UAE to do their work, but they did such a tremendous, amazing job, and I commend my amazing team and the leadership that we have there. Because Corona basically just shut down the entire world. Some people were stuck outside, but that didn't stop them from working. So that was very inspiring to see. The second thing is that all of our plans, just one thing remained. We need to show people that how important this mission is, and we need to give them its worth. How? We didn't know, because that was way before the quarantine was lifted. This was at the time where Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center, the teams, the engineers that are responsible for this, some of them were stuck in Japan. Teams were being formed again. Risk management teams were being formed again, so we couldn't film. Our cameras were not allowed to go there. So instead, the cameras from the Space Center did our job for us. The fourth thing as well is just going there and filming, because there were a lot of restrictions with the with the safe distances, with the masks, with everything. But the show must go on, and this is what happened. As an entire team, I'm speaking about the graphics that you guys saw, about the beautiful reports that were there, about the writing, the way the studio was designed as well by the visionaries that we had, and people just kept working day and night. Corona scared us, but it didn't stop us. So that's very important to say.
That's itself very inspiring. And as a senior employee, what has COVID-19 opened your eyes on, especially in the media sector, since you're part of it? And maybe this would take on after COVID-19, since we know the new normal would be very new.
Yes. Media has always been respected, but it has gained more respect in a tremendous way after what happened. People were still working. A lot of people were working from home, but a lot of other people didn't stop for a single day. They were working for 3 to 4 weeks, Fridays and Saturdays included, during the pandemic, during the spike in the numbers that we had. And it was very scary, but they kept pushing. And maybe I'm going to talk about my home, DMI. We had, I saw teams just coming up with shows and segments on the spot and putting them on air within a few hours. People need to know that this is hard. You need at least a team of 10 people to do this. And in the end, it's not just about going on air. The quality of the information is quite important. It's not the quantity. I can go on air, talk for 5 minutes, and really give you something, or go on air for 10 hours and give you nothing. So it was quite a challenge. So after everything that has happened, media has changed in a very big way. We became more virtual than actually physically needing to be there. So we became more creative with what we had. That's number one. Number two, people are going to see the employees that work in media as fighters. No, we're not doctors, of course. They are heroes. Okay, but I'm talking about fighters, to get you the right information, to give it to you in a way as not to scare you too much, but at the same time, make you realize what's truly happening. That type of balance was very scared, because don't forget, we are also people and human beings. We were scared. We have our families, and a lot of people just kept on going to work because they had to. So it's a newly found greater sense of respect, I think. So I think this is gonna affect people studying media a lot in the future.
It's very surprising what you're telling us about behind the scenes, because to us as an audience, what we saw on the TV screens were very normal, very impressive. So, how's that different, and how were DMI able to transform an image that is different than what it's carried in the studio?
Well, I can't speak for the entire incorporation, but I will talk about it as an employee. Um, by the elevator and the entrance door and everything, we just had messages to support us and to tell us that don't worry, we're in this together. You need to stay safe. You need to inform us if anything is happening. We basically were leaving our family houses to go back to a bigger family. We felt supported and we felt taken care of, and that's the most important thing. And this is what really drove us towards, in my own personal view, excellence in what happened. Um, Even during Ramadan, we had shows, we had field reporters. I have to commend Zainab Al Ajmi. Zainab, she's an Zayed University alumni. She graduated, I think, a year or two ago. She's very young. Zainab, in the middle of the spike of the pandemic, was, of course, she was taking all the safety measurements with the mask, the gloves, the face shields when needed, and at 12 and 1 in the morning was in the streets reporting. She was our eyes and she was our ears. She was not in the studio, which is important. But Zainab was talking to the people in the streets safely, of course, and just giving us an entire sense of what we're living. So I have to commend Zainab for that. I met her as a student, and she does not cease to amaze me, mashallah. So things like that and examples like that, people like that, are what will talk about the incorporation. Work talks for itself, I guess.
Wonderful. On the day of Hopper after all of those preparations, taking the safety measurements, life is not normal or usual in DMI nor outside. How did that feel, especially that you are putting your name as an impression into the history of not only the UAE but also the Arab and the scientific world?
Alhamdulillah. That's the first thing I'm gonna say, is I'm still very grateful. The night of, so we basically started broadcasting 10 p.m. July 19, and the night before, that was July 18. I couldn't sleep. I think I'm not the only one. And the morning, when we were children and we would wake up on the first day of Eid, and we'd have this excitement and a little bit of pain in our stomach, and we're hungry but we can't eat, and we're just waiting for the family to get together or going to our grandparents' house. It felt like that. It felt amazing, and it was scary from not too much, alhamdulillah, but it was a little bit scary as a sense of it's our first time to be in a studio outside of our Dubai Media Corporation. For me, it's the first time to be in a studio outside. So what you guys saw on TV is us without masks, talking, just being normal. But the second that we would go to the next studio, for example, that was in the Dubai News Center, it's where I work, we would just put our masks back on and just go with the sanitizer again, and just everyone was keeping a safe distance at the Space Center. Everyone was wearing masks, by the way, except for the presenters. But we had the social distancing, of course. They actually measured between our chairs to see to make sure that this is the safe distance. And even our guests came with masks, just took them off for the interview, put them back on. And it was just different, you know, when the probe launched, alhamdulillah, successfully, and everyone was still waiting for the signal to come from the Hope probe to the Space Center, which, by the way, this is what defines if the mission is successful or not. It's not the launch. People were clapping and applauding for the launch, which was a very happy thing. But if you saw on TV, the engineers and everyone else were literally breathless, because if that signal didn't come, 6 years of work was basically, I'm not going to say nothing, but it just flew out the window. But alhamdulillah, the signal came, all was well. And when Imran Sharaf, who is مدير مهمة الإمارات لاستكشاف المريخ مسبار الأمل, he is the one in charge of the Hope probe. When Imran Sharaf came to give his word, people forgot social distancing because of how happy they were. They forgot the safe distances and from the excitement, you know. So he just stood there and he said, I cannot speak until everyone keeps a space distance between each other. And you can just hear it. It was 3:30 in the morning. And everyone was like, oh my God. And everyone just, you know, it was automatic how everyone just kind of paced away from each other. So even through our happy times, we kind of tend to forget that there's something that we need to be taken care of. But that was one thing I'll never forget, how everyone just repelled from one another. It was like a whole magnetic field by itself. But in general, yes, it was very different, but not that different, if it makes any sense. I thought it would be 180 degrees to what we're used to, but that was not the case. I'd say 90 degrees different.
Yes, for us as an audience, we didn't feel the difference. That's why I was asking.
That means we did a good job.
A wonderful job.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, we're always very proud, and we're even extra proud with the Hopper probe mission and the leading again the Arabs to Mars as a hope signal to all of the youth and raising the bar for a brighter future. We look forward to it with which your little daughter Maya would be part of one day, inshallah.
Inshallah. I have a feeling that she's gonna have something to do with space, but we never know. They have something new every day. But I feel like she's as passionate as I am, and her father as well. We're all like space geeks, the three of us. So we'll see. Whatever path she chooses, as long as she's passionate about it, we're there for her.
Very interesting. Atheer, as now a senior, you have been working for almost 10 years.
Yes. Since 2010, yeah. 10 years. 10 years and a half now.
Yes.
Around, yeah.
With more success, inshallah. What advice would you give students, media students in specific and students in general?
Okay. Well, students in general, I know it's very hard when we're asked, where do you see yourself in 5 years? It's a very stressful question. And at this day and age, it's a bit hard to say, because everything is changing every day, especially with what we're going through right now. And the new successes and missions in general that we have in the UAE. For example, if you ask someone, where would you see yourself in 5 years, they would possibly talk about a job that wouldn't exist in 3 years because of the technology and everything that we have. So I would say, take your time to find something that you're passionate with. If there's no passion, that's okay. Find something that makes you happy, or find something that has a spark, leaves a spark in you, whatever job that may be. Don't be too restricted with your degree. Yani, for example, someone who graduated in events planning doesn't have to stay in events planning all their lives because they have a degree in events planning. The second thing, which I learned through my career from professionals and students and graduates that I see, in this day and age, maybe for the next 3 or even 5 years, التخصص. You need to be very specific in what you are studying. In our day, 10 years ago, or since 2015, the right way to choose a major was something broad so you can work in a broader field. However, nowadays, for example, if you're going to be, let's say, you're going to study psychology, psychology is not going to be enough. For example, you will go for, I'm going to study psychology and write my paper, or go deeper within my project or my internship in psychology of a criminal's mind, or psychology of an addict's mind, or psychology of someone who has been abused. And this is how you're going to find a job. And it just makes your path a bit clearer for you. So broad doesn't work anymore. You need to be more specific. So ask all the questions you need. Ask yourself all the questions that you need. Talk to your professors. Talk to your advisors. Read, watch documentaries to have a better and whole picture. Now, my advice for media students is also, if you can, right now, our media has a very, very, very big big opportunities to excel. We don't have people who in the media are, for example, who specify in addiction. We need that. We need that tremendously. We don't have people in the media who are specified in space. We don't have people in the media who are specified, truly specified in, for example, children's psychology. So you have an opportunity right now, because if you graduate in something like that right now, or master in it, or write your papers in it, you are going to be a pioneer in 10 years. You're going to be a pioneer of this specific media field. The second thing I would advise, and I would plead with the students even, please do not mix communication with fame. It's two different things. We can all be famous. We can all be famous. But imagine that you have a contract to be true to your people, to communicate very purely, very, let's say, clearly, and not just mix everything with fame. Because once you do that, people are not going to perceive you as I'lami. You won't be a media figure anymore. You will be an influencer, which I have nothing against, by the way. But if you will take your path in media seriously, you just need to prepare your mind and clearly know that me being in media doesn't necessarily mean that I want to be famous. It's not about that. So you will definitely get fame if you're working, for example, on specific projects or specific shows. But don't let that be your goal. Because once fame is your goal, you're going to succumb to what other people want and what the market wants, instead of the responsibility that you have towards your community and the next generations. So this is something that I always tell media students, so that they don't fall in that trap. Because we've seen a lot of wasted talent just go in the path of fame and being pressured. And then their light just dims, you know? So don't be that person. Unless you want to be an influencer, it's totally up to you, but just know the difference.
What about fresh graduates who are seeking for employment? How dedicated and committed they should be?
I'll say it in Arabic. لا تتشرطون. I'm not saying that you don't deserve it, But right now, in this day of and age, لا تتشرطون. And I'm not saying don't put too many rules like, no, I don't want this job because I'm expecting to be paid X amount of money. You have to start somewhere. You really have to start somewhere. And that's what we see in career events all around the UAE. We have had students or fresh graduates, sorry, that wouldn't work in banks, which is, and they would say, you know, I don't have money, I have a family, I need to help them, I don't have a job, I don't have a job. And when the job is presented to them, and they tell you, we're also going to give you a degree in finance, they say, no, I don't want to work in a bank. But the job is there. And the salary is 15,000 plus. This was 2 years ago, or a year ago, actually. The salary is 15,000 plus. No, no, no. I expect to be paid 25 at least. The jobs are there. Please. Okay? The jobs are really there. Maybe now after COVID-19, things would get a bit worse in some cases, but follow your passion. If you need to be financially able, take any job that you can, of course, within reason. Take that job, get paid 10,000 a month. It's better than being paid nothing. And maybe within 3 months, you find the job that you were aspiring for. So,
At the career department, unemployment drags more unemployment years.
exactly.
Starting somewhere is where you put your foot.
Exactly, Hind. Like, for example, if I was to employ someone and they would have amazing skills, but I would ask her, why haven't you been employed in 6 years? What is she going to tell me? Jobs were not good enough for me? I wouldn't employ her.
I had a lot of conditions.
Very high maintenance. I wouldn't. I'll give you an example of a girl. There's an initiative in Abu Dhabi called نعم للعمل, where the youth, yeah, where the youth are basically working in the private sector in retail, and it would be in places like Carrefour, IKEA, places like that. There was a
International,
girl, sorry,
very international companies.
very international companies. So, and places where you wouldn't see Emiratis. This initiative is by our leadership. نعم للعمل, yes to work. Work is not something to be shy about, whatever it is that you're working. So this young girl, I met her in 2018. She's Emirati. Because of family issues, she couldn't continue her studies. She was caring for her mother. So she heard of this initiative and she joined. She joined and she was about 20 years old. She doesn't have a bachelor's degree. She had to drop off out of university. So she was working in stocking. This was her job. Emirati girl, stocking. And she said, she was talking, it was a panel discussion, and she said a lot of people were telling her, Abe, what will people say about your family? You're stocking things in a supermarket. And she would always say, work is not something to be ashamed of, no matter what it is. Her salary was about 2,700. And then, what did she do? She went to her manager and said, please, let me shadow someone that's working in a cashier. They said, sure, why not? She knows English, she knows Urdu, she knows Arabic. So working later on, after shadowing the cashier, she started working in the cashier. And then she said, please let me work in customer service. They said, okay, let's see. She said, I'm bilingual. I'm multilingual. Okay, let me work. And by the way, she was being paid more. She's going up the ladder now. Now, her salary is more than 40,000 dirhams within 5 years. She proved herself. She worked. She didn't say no. Right now, she's a manager. She's a manager, not a regional manager. What's less than that? Like, she's a manager of a very big retail supermarket, let's say, international, in a specific, let's say, area in Abu Dhabi, which has like 3 or 4 of them. So 40,000. is more than any of us are getting paid even after 13 or 14 years of working. So this is just an example. I'm not saying go to work in a supermarket or in IKEA or in Carrefour. What I'm saying that work, prove yourself. You will get to places. However, if we sit and go, this is not enough for me, this is not enough for me, unemployment, like Hind said, just brings more unemployment. And then no one, why should I employ someone who's just lazy and entitled? This is what I'm going to see. Maybe this is a good person, but as an employer, this is what I'm going to see.
Indeed, working in a supermarket or a Carrefour is a very valuable thing since it's an international companies, and indeed it gives you a lot of benefits like the multi um, culture they have and the different and again the private sector always has a more of a rapid stairs to climb in, and again the stairs we always climb them from down, so you got to
You have
start
to
small
start
and
somewhere.
go
Yeah.
gradually.
Mm-hmm.
Athir,
You
it
have to
was a
start somewhere.
very incredible conversation with you, hearing about Hubprop, the biggest or the most latest mission the UAE have led for the Arab region and Arab youth future. Talking about your career excellence, starting from ZU to now DMI as a senior bulletin editor and TV presenter. Thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to meet you in a couple of years with bigger missions, hopefully.
Inshallah, inshallah, Hind. I want to thank you and, of course, thank our viewers. They have given us a very big chunk of their time, and we really appreciate this. And thank you so much for having me on Let's Talk. It was really a pleasure.
The pleasure of ours, and it's always proud to talk with ZU Alumni.
Thank you so much, and best of luck. We're always here. Just let us know, and we're always here. This is our campus, yani.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
And
Hind. You too, darling.
thank you so much all for your valuable time. Thank you for listening to us. We always aim not only to share successful stories with all of you and inspire, but also to benefit our current students, fresh graduates, and experience sharing different experiences with each other within the industry we're talking about or different. We even value more your feedbacks on our different social media channels, starting from the email, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We're always here to hear your feedbacks for improvements, nominations to host more ZU alumni, and we look forward to see you on another Let's Talk session, talking with another ZU alumni excellence and of a different sector and different industry. We look forward to see you. Please stay tuned for our coming Let's Talk. And as we always say, always let's connect. We're always happy to connect with our valued alumni. Again, stay safe, take care, and good night. مع السلامة، يعطيكم العافية. شكرا جزيلا على الحضور، ومع السلامة.